Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Buck Sexton Show. We have Matt Kim with us, internet guy, or I should say, famous internet personality with huge following from Instagram to YouTube to all the other places. So, my friend, how did you become Matt Kim? The audience won't be familiar with you because I've never had you on before. Tell me about all things Matt Kim.
So I'm just a guy from the corner of Georgia. I decided one day that I wanted to start talking to a camera. I think just more frustration in how the world is going. I recently had a daughter at the time. It was a little bit over a year and a half ago. And I just, one of those things where you just start talking and I don't know what happened. People just started listening. It happened really fast. I've only been doing this for maybe a little bit over a year.
Wow. You've
Yeah,
done
it happened
you've done
fast.
very well, sir. So I know a little bit of your background from watching some of your content, which is how I had you here. Your parents are South Korean, right? Came to this
Yes.
country, kind of the immigrant American dream story, and now you're trying to save the country. What's the first thing? I mean, right now, as you and I are talking, it's kind of funny, right? Because I was looking forward to chatting with you because we don't have to just dive into the Trump trial. I feel like everything, as you and I talk, we're still waiting for a verdict in the Trump trial. The jury has been excused. It is Thursday of the first deliberations week. I think that everything that can be said about the Trump trial by the people who care about it has been said. And so I didn't really want to get into that as much as what ails us as a country right now. Like, what does Matt Kim want to fix? How are you going to fix America, Matt?
I think the biggest issue that people have right now with the current state of the country is distrust in establishment, distrust in government, distrust in institutions. I think this is where people really fail the most because we all have different issues that we care about most. But the reality is that we feel duped and we feel lied to by the institutions that we've trusted over time, not only universities, but government, healthcare, our neighbors, our communities, our city governments. People are just really fed up. People feel like they've been lied to constantly. And I think that's the biggest thing for most people.
How much of it is institutional capture by a certain worldview? I think it's even more than just an ideology. Like it's the way that they view everything. It's the way they view more than a political ideology, right? It's the way they view existence. But also, how do you factor into this? We're frustrated, right? We're frustrated about what's going on in the country, but we keep putting power in the hands of people who we then say are dishonest, they're morons, or is it a reflection, like the people in charge making bad decisions? That's one thing, but is it a reflection of bad decisions that we're making as a society by putting them in place? You know what I mean?
I definitely think so. I've had a lot of conversations recently with people that I would consider patriots, people that genuinely care about the state of the country, people that I feel would be extremely competent if they were get involved in government. Not the incompetent, power hungry people that are in government now, but people that I feel would genuinely do a good job. And everyone says the same thing. I would love to, but kind of got a lot of things going on right now. We care just enough to talk about it. We care just enough to maybe get angry about it. But when it takes time to be selfless and to go out there and do something for others and sacrifice maybe a little bit of your own livelihood, maybe sacrifice a little bit of your own privacy, sacrifice a little bit of your own way of life, people don't really want to do that. And I think that's really what it is. And that's on us.
And what do you think? What do you think about those who would say it's because we live in a society of so much abundance, wealth, just prosperity, relative safety? I know people are freaked out at crime, and it's a real problem. But if you were to compare what our lives are like to what lives have been like in even recent generations, but certainly stretching back for centuries, are we just getting soft and therefore creating problems? It's like hedonic adaptation is when whatever good that happens to you, you just get used to, and then you need something else good because, are we in a situation where we have to get upset about little things because the big things are all covered? Like, how do you view that?
I, I think it's social media. I think it's social media. I think it's movies. I think it's entertainment. I'm going to say 20, 30, 40 years ago, we didn't know that we didn't have certain things. We didn't get shoved in our face that you should buy a really nice car all the time, that you need to buy these clothes, you need to consume this technology. Ignorance is bliss. And you didn't realize how people outside of your small neighborhood were living. And we treated movie stars and people on the big screen almost as gods. And you had a separation from them. So you didn't feel that you could be them. Therefore, you didn't really ever chase after and want to be them. You just
Yeah.
kind of admired them from afar.
Yeah.
Now it's so accessible and so in your face that everyone feels like if I'm not doing what they're doing, I must be doing something wrong. And
Yeah.
people lose context of kind of the simpler things that really matter in life, like family.
Well, I think you definitely see this. I mean, you mentioned the social media and the way that, first of all, when people take a step back, they see that social media, and I'll admit this for me too, right? Social media is not a reflection of what your life is really like. No one is really no one's putting on photos when, for the most part, where they look ugly or, at least they think they look ugly, or where they're depressed or where they're having a bad day, or, in general, people are trying to present essentially an online brand. And this is, I think we're entering this whole new world. I think the Matrix is one of the best sci-fi and one of the best action movies of all time. And it came out at this really interesting moment where the internet was still this very powerful but new phenomenon. I do feel like we're not connected into the Matrix like there's weird machines that are running our lives, but everybody's an online brand now, right? I mean, if you're looking to work in any field, what's the first thing that a lot of people do when they're going to employ you? They're going to check you out online. If you're dating, if you're out there, you're a married guy, you said you've got a baby, right? But if you're dating out there, I used to be single. I'm now married, Matt, and so yay! I joined the club. I'm very very happy to have joined the married club. But girls would tell me that they would scope me out online, right? And what you realize, there's a lot of stuff about you. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, on the one hand, we want to avoid this stuff, and on the other hand, we're drawn into it. There's the superficial, oh, I just want clicks and likes, and then there's also if you're not on the internet, are you able to compete in any field?
I mean, first off, The Matrix wasn't a movie, it was a documentary.
True.
Say that all the time. And yeah, we live in a clicks and views economy. People, that is your social credibility. That is what people look at. I remember I was around some politicians, and every once in a while, I'll end up somehow around different types of politicians and people within Congress. And I'll be talking to them, or I'll introduce myself, or maybe their chief of staff will bring them over and be like, oh, yeah, we want you to meet Matt Kim. And they're like, oh, yeah, nice to meet you. And they kind of walk off. No big deal. Not that upset about it. And then the chief of staff leans back in and starts whispering in the ear. That's he's got so many some. And they come back, oh, Matt Kim, we love Matt Kim. That's so great to see you. I'm like, oh, they're so disingenuous. But the reality is that they look at the numbers, they look at the metrics, and that's how they decide your worth now. Because if they can talk to one person and you have the ability to get to 100 people or 1,000 people or 100,000 people, they don't have to waste their time trying to talk to 100,000 people.
What do you think is the
It's
most
the
important?
idea of the matrix. It's trying to put people into data sets, categories, and population is just so much easier to control if you can categorize them.
What do you think is if you're doing it the way you want to do it, the central premise of the content that you're putting online? What do you want to accomplish for the people that are the consumers of it? I'm always curious about this when I talk to people who do what we do.
I think for what you mentioned, it almost feels like we're all plugged directly into the matrix. Maybe not physically, but maybe metaphysically, maybe psychologically, whatever it is. But we all feel like we're plugged in and we're fed a certain narrative. We're they're removing our ability to think for ourselves, to question narratives, and just comply. And I think that's really what I'm trying to do is to pick different topics, give an alternative natural, logical solution or take on that topic. And sometimes all it takes is one moment to realize, huh, they've been lying to me about this, or this is not what they made it perceived to be. And once you see that crack in the matrix at one time, then the second time is easier, and the third time is easier, and the fourth time is easier. And then you realize everything around you. And I think if people were had the ability to think for themselves and the ability to look past all the propaganda, I think we'd be a better society because we'd be less controllable and we'd have more freedom.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned earlier on, we just got started talking about institutions, and people will refer on the right a lot to institutional capture. And I have to say, when people now say that they are skeptical of a whole range of institutions, I can't argue with that. Like I can weigh in and say, well, I think that's maybe going a little too far, or no, not everyone there is bad. And these, but even as you say that, I think it feels a little mealy mouthed, a little milk. It's like, oh well, the CDC. I mean, I don't know if you know this about me. I don't think anyone hates what Fauci stood for during COVID more than me. I mean, and the whole time I saw exactly who that guy was, what he was all about, and I think that he's one of the most destructive, and it comes out of cowardice and it comes out of lies, right? So much that we see that's evil, that's bad, that's tyrannical, is really the outgrowth of lies. Right? It's just people embracing untruth or non-truth in some way. Fauci was central to that, and so I'll say, oh well, the CDC is not all bad. They do some nice, I don't know, health education stuff out there or something. But what they're supposed to really do, or where it matters, they are really bad. And that's true of a lot of institutions now. I think people feel that way about the elite universities. I mean, Matt, did you see this stat? And I'll just describe it in case you didn't see it, where the prevalence of a pro-Palestinian or pro-Hamas, however you want to slice that, encampment and the cost of the school was directly correlated. Basically, if you go to community college, state school, a not elite, in quotes, college or university, or not very expensive college or university, you didn't do that stuff. But at the Harvards and Columbia, et cetera, encampments at all of them. You know what I'm saying? Like those schools, the schools that are supposed to be at the very forefront, are supposed to be educating the best, are brainwashing kids and telling them crazy things.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with pride. I think we are so proud as a population, so proud in kind of what we want people to perceive us, that it's hard to look past kind of our own selves. Because if you've dedicated your life to be in a certain field and you've done your research, or if you were a doctor or researcher and you took a stance on COVID at that time, and you find out that maybe it wasn't true, it's really hard to go back because then it would ruin your credibility. It would ruin possibly your life's work. No one wants to be wrong. No one wants to be perceived as a person that was wrong. No one wants to apologize anymore. If you mess it up, I think that's the hardest thing, especially about COVID. It's that we know for a fact that people in charge, people in higher levels of government got it wrong. There's no denying that. Everyone knows that to be true at this point. When are they ever going to come out and be like, look, kind of messed that one up. We're sorry.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people just want to hear that.
Well, this brings me to one of the biggest challenges that I see in America today, and this affects the media, it affects the institutions, it affects a lot of the things we've already started to speak about here, is that they have decided, and this is more open than I can ever remember it being, when I was younger, and they have decided that being wrong and telling lies is always okay and even admirable, as long as it is in the service of the collective good or the collective team. Journalism for sure did this during Trump, and they were pretty explicit about it, right? Because they knew they could no longer sell themselves, like the Washington Post can't sell, we're nonpartisan, we're just objective. So what they tried to do was and this was an open discussion, if you remember, was say, well, we're anti-Trump because the truth is anti-Trump, and therefore, by telling the truth, we're inherently anti-Trump, so we have no choice. Do you see what I mean? Like there's this twisting of reality and objectives and mission statement that has occurred, I think, across the spectrum in America.
Yeah, the normalization of this logistical gymnastics that we go through, it's mind-boggling because we take things that are obviously not true and we're able to justify it for a greater good that only maybe one side believes in. And that's why we're losing objectivity, we're losing truth, and people can't agree because we're not even talking along the same premise any longer.
One thing I will say also is a lot of people will hear this later on in the week. I don't think there's going to be a verdict tomorrow, but I don't know.
Hmm.
But there's the possibility, right, on the Trump thing. And like I said, I've already said a million things about Trump and the Trump trial. And when we were setting up the talk today, I was like, look, I don't want to. Yes, we know that it's a sham. 34 counts is outrageous. That it's not really a crime. They delayed it. We could go through all this. Put that aside. I feel like one part of it that is still hard to imagine is that I think whether he's guilty or found guilty or hung jury or whatever it is, people are just so saturated now with the craziness of politics that I don't know that there is some other level that it goes to. Do you know what I mean? We're so attuned to being told, "Oh my gosh, it's the end of the country or it's the end of democracy," and that even if you don't believe it, I feel like it recalibrates you. So now it's like, well, I'm already told the country's going to end if Trump wins. So what am I supposed to freak out about it? Do you know what I mean? There's no additional level for the outrage to go to. It's kind of, we've reached like maximum, terminal velocity outrage.
And sometimes I feel like that may even be the plan. Get people so saturated and so jaded with the political process, because typically we'd be starting presidential election season around now. But we started way early because primaries really didn't happen. And people are fed up with the Trump trials. Most of the people aren't even following anymore. You kind of just flip through a news hoping to get an update. People aren't following as closely as they could be. People aren't following the other trials that just seem to never go anywhere. I think the point is to get people so jaded and so fed up with the political process that come election time in November, people are like, oh, I don't really care that much anymore. I'm just going to sit this one out. And I think that may even be the plan, just to keep people so done with the process. And it's so ridiculous that maybe they just don't want people to turn out. Because if a lot of people turn out, I think the more people that turn out, Trump would have a higher chance of winning.
Yeah.
It's just how it is.
We're going to come back to this in a second with my friend Matt Kim here. But just from our sponsor, the Oxford Gold Group, for a second. I've got gold here at home. I'm a believer in gold. If you look at what gold has been doing over the last, well, not just the last few months, but if you look at over the last few decades, gold is a store of value. And at a time when inflation is just eating away at your savings and there's the possibility of real central bank disruptions ahead, you want to have a hedge against inflation. You want to have tangible currency on hand. Nobody can predict the future, but you can prepare for it. The Oxford Gold Group are pros at this. They're who I go to for all my gold and silver, and they make it simple and easy to understand. Just give them a call. The Oxford Gold Group, you may qualify for up to $10,000 in free precious metals. The number is 833-995-GOLD. That's 833-995-GOLD. Matt, what do you think of Elon?
I'm on the fence with him.
Really? Tell me more. I'm surprised, but I want to hear more before I say any more. What do you think? Why?
So I don't know what his intention is. I assume that his intentions are pure. I don't like the idea that there is one person that is in charge and leading in vehicles, in transportation, in space, in satellites, in digging underground tunnels, in AI, in robots, in your communication, in your data. He's in charge and on top of all of it. If he's a good guy, maybe it's a good thing. However,
are you just suspicious then? Just too much power in the hands of one man? Is that the baseline?
I don't like too much power in the hands of one person because it creates God complex. And all it does, because again, we talked about it earlier, pride. All it takes is one incident or one person to put someone in the wrong direction, one girl to really mess them up. That's how super villains are made. And all of a sudden, we have the good guy becomes a bad guy, and he's in charge of everything. I don't like that. I like distribution of power.
Yeah, well, I see. My problem is that, and particularly again to the pandemic, which was in many ways a period of political radicalization. I was already right wing, but the pandemic made me really fearful about the future of the country if the tyrannical leftists were able to get what they want. But I just remember the social media companies, what we've been through as a society. It has never happened before that you have so much power concentrated in really what is a fringe ideology. When you think of Silicon Valley, far left-wing Democrats, it's like the most far left-wing part of the entire country by party registration, by beliefs. I mean, just go spend some time there. And they created, or they were able to build such dominance online, search, social media, platforms. I mean, everything, right? I mean, how you buy things, how you share information, the servers that we have. And I felt like they all started back to we're talking a lot of Matrix today, back to our Matrix conversation. It felt to me like, Agent Smith just decided they were going to shut down the right for a while there. So I'm very, very hopeful about what Elon's trying to do, because to me, if you had the continuation of what we had, where you had true zealots, I mean, emotionally unstable zealots in charge of trust and safety at Twitter and these places, as we've seen, I don't know if we really live in a free society, right? I mean, if someone can control 95% of the information flow in one direction online, do we live in a free society? I mean, you might be able to write whatever you want on a little piece of paper and put it in front of your house, right? But that's not going to do very much.
And I get that. And I think what he's done for Twitter or X so far has been great. I do know that for sure I'm trying to be careful because, everyone loves Elon.
I thought you were going to like Elon, so I was really interested to hear
I kind of do like Elon. I was more bullish on him earlier. I don't like the fact that X has a social credit system built in. And I'm very adamantly against social credit systems. But there's one inherently built in. So, for example, if I put up a post or a video on TikTok or Instagram, and 1,000 people share that video, it counts as 1,000 people shared that video, regardless if you have 1 follower or 1,000,000 followers. The algorithm will say, okay, 1,000 people shared it. On X, if 1,000 people that share that video, but each 1,000 people have less than, I think the number is 1,000 followers, it counts as 0. Certain people are worth less to the algorithm within X than other people. And I think that's weird. I don't like that at all. I think people should be considered equal. And if they have more visibility, that's great. But you shouldn't be penalizing people for not being popular enough on a platform. How are you going to tell me that 1,000 people shared a post, but they don't count because they're not popular enough? I don't like that idea.
What's the most important thing we could do right now to fix the country?
I think continue to have conversations. I think people should continue to speak out. I think free speech is the most important thing that we have in this country. It's what separates this country from every other country in the world. And to see it at risk is a huge concern. I think if more and more people spoke out about the injustices of COVID, maybe we wouldn't have got into the situation that we had. And people say, well, I did speak out, but not enough. They can't cancel everybody. What would happen if everyone spoke out about it at the same exact time? No one's going to consume their technology. No one's going to read their ads. No one's going to watch their ads. No one's going to buy their product. Their product would cease to exist. They can't cancel everyone. I think they make examples of certain people and they scare everyone else from talking. And I think it's our job as a populace to speak out and say, no, like enough is enough.
Matt Kim, it has been a pleasure, man. Let's do this again. I would love to come on the Matt Kim show sometime too. So you let me know.
Let's do it
when that works for you. I want to meet all of Matt Kim's people, so to speak, in the ecosystem. You'll be Morpheus, I'll be Neo, or you can be Neo, I'll be Morpheus. We'll keep the Matrix stuff going. But anyway, man, it was great to talk to you. And let's keep in touch and let's try to save the internet, save the country. Sounds good to me.
Thank you, brother. I'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks so much. Bye.